Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Translation: the fifth incarnation, named Lord Kapila, is foremost among perfected beings. He gave an exposition of the creative elements and metaphysics to Asuri Brahmana, for in course of time this knowledge had been lost. Purport: the sum of elements is 24 in all. Each and every one of them is explicitly explained in the system of Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is generally called metaphysics by the European scholars. The etymological meaning of Sankhya is that which explains very lucidly by analysis of the material elements. This was done for the first time by Lord Kapila, who is said here to be the fifth in the line of incarnations. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyadi Paschate Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Fifth in the list of incarnations is Lord Kapila. So this is described again in detail in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the third canto, Incarnation of Krishna. Lord Kapila spoke on Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya, Prabhupada here gives the English translation as metaphysics. I don't know if you heard about that before, that word, but I remember hearing it many years ago. In Europe, they have this field of study called metaphysics. And what is metaphysics? Meta means beyond, above, beyond basically, beyond physics. Because physics, what we can see and touch, then they have metaphysics, they study, which they term as, in the dictionary, they term metaphysics in European English as study of existence, truth and knowledge, things which we cannot see. But it's very elementary level. We can understand that its root is in Sankhya, in Vedic texts, but a lot of, because there was tendency towards atheism, they eliminated the God aspect, the spiritual aspect. So in Sanskrit, what is Sankhya? Kapila Muni spoke on Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya, it's explained. Sankhya is generally called metaphysics. The etymological meaning of Sankhya is that which explains very lucidly by analysis of material elements. So by a study of proper study of matter, proper very deep explanation is given, actually culminating in spiritual study. So actual purpose of Sankhya is to study this material world in detail, to understand what it is and what it's not, and also to study this body, material body and this material world, to isolate the soul. Because one way is someone tells you you're a soul, another way is I study Sankhya, perceive what is intelligence. We understand intelligence is like this, it's like that, so they'll study intelligence. What is mind? This is mind. What are the thoughts? What is consciousness? And what are the elements? How are they reacting? The guna, the senses, how are they gathering knowledge, working senses, and knowledge acquiring senses. And then there'll be something, then they'll be able to perceive there is something which is not any of these, that is Atma. So that is the conclusion. Finally, this should be for Sankhya. So isolating the soul, the self from matter. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Sankhya philosophy is exposition is done in detail. If we study, it goes on to explain material elements and creation. In creation there was totality of senses. Then all of us took some part of it for eyes, ears, and all. But the totality of senses. Then intelligence, mind was created, the element out of which we took some part. And that is in detail. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, in one verse, Bhagavatam is Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavatam, but in a summary form. So in one verse, Sankhya is explained in chapter 13, which was, who knows? Yeah, that is the chapter 13, speaking on Kshetra, yeah. But there's a verse in chapter 13, because 13 speaks on nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. In fact, these chapters after 12, the middle 6 chapters, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that is the core. The outer parts are tending towards Gyan. The initial parts tend towards karma, and bhakti is in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So the last 6 chapters go into analysis of matter, consciousness, interaction of these. Okay, so in chapter 13, in text 5, text 4, Krishna says, Tat kshetram, well, of course, before that, Krishna says that Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetrishu bharata. He explains about the body and the soul. Then Krishna says, I am also the knower of each body. He says that. The next verse, he says, Sarcha yat prabhavacha tat samasena me shrunu. Please hear my brief description of this field of activity. Krishna explained a brief description of the body, how it is constituted. That means what makes up the body, how is it working, briefly. What its changes are. And when it was produced, who the knower of the field is. Who is the knower of the field? Soul, we, but also Krishna. So, within this chapter, they'll explain something about the soul, they'll explain reincarnation, some points. Then they'll explain about Paramatma. Paramatma in some verses goes very deep, explains. Okay? And what are the influences of it? So, fine. Then, before explaining this knowledge, Krishna says, on going deep into this Sankhya, this knowledge of the soul, the body, and consciousness, how everything is interacting. Before that, he explains, Arjuna, to get his attention, that he says, Rishibir, the rishis, Rishibir Bahuda Gitam, Chando Bir Vividai Pratak, Brahma Sutra Padaischeva, Hetumad Bir Vinishchite. He says that this knowledge I am going to explain you, it was explained by the rishis in great detail. Rishibir Bahuda Gitam, Gita. Gita, this here means, in this phrase, in this shlok, explained in detail. Rishibir Bahuda Gitam, Chandobir Vividai Pratak. Chandas in the verses of the Vedas, Upanishads. Chandobir Vividai Pratak. Brahma Sutra means the Vedanta. Brahma Sutra Padaischaiva Hetumadbir Vinishchitai. It's also explained in the Vedanta Sutra. So we can understand this is a very deep topic. It was explained before, now here also. So then, in one verse, Krishna speaks what in the Bhagavatam goes in very great detail. In one verse, Krishna explains. Here, I'll just read English translation directly. Actually, we should read Sanskrit. Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha indriyani dashaikam cha pancha chendriya gocharaha ichchadvesha sukham dukham sanghatas chetana dhriti etat kshetram samasena savikaram udahartam. He says the 5 great elements. I think you know what are the 5 great elements. 5 great elements? Okay, good. This knowledge is there still in society. So, 5 great elements, meaning the Panchabhuta. Then, false ego, intelligence. Then it says the unmanifested, avyakta, which my understanding is, this is Brahman. The 10 senses. 10 senses means there are 5 senses which acquire knowledge and 5 working senses. The parts of the body, the feet, the genitals, hands, like working parts of the body, knowledge acquiring parts, total are 10 senses. and the sense objects. Okay, this is a little bit technical, try to keep, okay, the 5 sense objects, then desire, hate, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. So in this one verse, Krishna explains the body and how it's interacting with the material world. This in Bhagavatam goes in great detail by Kapila, Lord Kapila's teachings. He goes in much detail here about this. So, Prabhupada writes that in authoritative statements in the Vedas by great sages, and in the Vedas and Vedanta Sutra, we can understand that this knowledge, we can understand that first, earth, water, fire, air, ether, they are generated, then 5 great elements are generated. This is explained in Bhagavatam, one by one how they generate creation in detail. So all of these things, it goes in detail then about. So it explains all these 24 elements. Everything comes to 24, totally. Okay. Now what is the 25th? Atma. So one studies Sankhya, studies the body like this. You study the body, study how it's acquiring knowledge, study the mind, how mind is impelling the senses to act, then intelligence, then higher study is consciousness. That's not here. Agreed. Life symptoms. You can say consciousness. Life symptom. What is the Sanskrit word? Chetana, consciousness. So consciousness, they study this in detail. Gradually then they begin to understand how these are acting, and then finally you come to consciousness, then you come to soul. And like this, by studying the material world and the body interacting, they identify the soul. This is Sankhya philosophy. So Sankhya begins with study of matter and all these things. Sankhya means analytical study, but it culminates in study of, it culminates in realization of soul, us. We realize ourselves as being separate from matter, not part of matter. So this is explained here, Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada writes, one who desires to know the 24 elements in detail, along with interactions, should study the philosophy in more detail. That is in Bhagavad Puran. Many hints are given in Gita to go further. Gita is preliminary study. Many hints are given that, okay, go deeper. That means Srimad Bhagavatam. So now in the West, they have Sankhya. They call it metaphysics. I remember once when I was in Africa, preaching in Africa, I came across Metaphysics Society. It's a Western thing, but some Indians were interested, so they set up a group. They brought the books. Then they called me. So of course I came. I spoke philosophy. But before that, I sat and heard their things. They discussed truth, our existence, but it goes into unfounded, speculating things because they don't have a proper Shastra. But this shows remnants of Sankhya. In the West, they study deep philosophy, but they study Greek, a lot of Greek philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, and then other Westerners, based on that Greek, they may study Chinese. It's famous, people know. They know someone called Lao Tzu, then Confucius. He was very famous in the West. But they don't study Indian philosophy much. They don't. All the great thinkers, okay, few of them are there that in our Bhagavad Gita you can see. They'll study the Chinese, Greek, ancient, Western, but if you come to Vedic philosophy, this is something very deep. You know, what I just spoke already crossed whatever in the Western philosophy they have. They're still poking around looking what is conscious, what is matter, what is mind. They don't understand the mind. Once I opened one book speaking about spiritual something topic, When I open the book, in this book we are assuming the mind and the soul are the same thing. And I close it. What am I going to learn from this book? Okay, so they are not going to read Vedic philosophy. You won't hear much Upanishads and all that because you have to know your subject. And when you open Upanishads and Veda, you can understand this is something deeper. In the Bhagavad Gita printed in UK, there are many comments by Western philosophers on Bhagavad Gita to encourage people to read in the West. So some of the quotes are amazing. One of them was by a philosopher said that he said something like, I owed a great morning to the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, he opened the Gita once and read it. He said it was so great. It was like an ancient civilization was speaking, not some small, not puny. Puny is a word in English, means petty. Not a petty civilization like ours. You can understand this is the voice of a great civilization. He said that, Westerners. Another one said that the ancient, by reading this Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that the ancients in the East already asked the questions we are asking and they already answered everything. It's over. So in the West, they put so many quotes in our Bhagavad Gita. So now the point to note that yes, they are studying Sankhya, everything, but the point is they eliminated God, atheistic. This Sankhya is very much Kapila. Later, among the 6 darshans, we have also there Sankhya, but that Sankhya is atheistic. And his name is Kapila also. Prabhupada reminds us whenever we read in the purports of Kapila teachings that there's another Kapila. He propounded atheistic, so we have to be careful. And therefore we say Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Then we understand who it is. So if Westerners were to study this Sankhya, they'll have to acknowledge its depth, superiority, and high level of discourse. It's speaking on a high level of consciousness, mind, intelligence, not small speculations. So that explanation in ancient civilizations, it would have been there when it was linked to the Vedas. But factually in this material world, jivas came to forget Krishna. So in everything they took out Krishna. Gradually, Kali Yuga, it became worse. As time goes, influence of Rajagun and Tamogun increase. Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali is very bad. So in the beginning, spirituality was pervading everything. But now it's not in government, not in school, not in philosophy, nowhere. And more they'll push it out. Because jivas taking birth now are more and more sinful. They didn't want it. But if Western philosophers and thinkers were to come to Vedic philosophy, 100% its philosophy, religion, science are all intertwined very closely. For example, Srimad Bhagavatam in many verses like Gopi Gita. If you study Gopi Gita, the 10th canto, the last ending sounds of the verses, there's a particular pattern which I'm not going to pretend to know and explain, but the first, second have a pattern, the third one and the fourth, they're all the same. It's very poetic. It's amazing, but at the same time such a deep philosophy. And same time, some scientific points are given explaining about the Supreme God. Another is our Chaitanya Charitamrita. You see that it's only 2 lines per verse, sometimes little more. But they are rhyming. The last syllable of the first and the second line are all rhyming. You know, any verses? Huh? Which one?
The first we chant.
Yeah. Jai Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Dvaita Chanda, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay. Then another one, Maya Grasta Jeev, Nahi Sata Krishna Gyan, Jivera Surup, Jivera Kripa Kaila Krishna Veda Puran. So many, now they are not coming to mind. Many verses.
Chaitanya Chandrerana Chaitanya Simherana Advita Avatare Simha Kriva Simha Virya Simhera Omkara.
Unkare.
Unkare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So many other. There's another one also. Shri Krishna Kripa Koroho Vichar Vichar Koribe Chitte Pabe Chamatkar. Yeah. Oh. Which one? Brahman Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Jeev Bij. So now the point is, Chaitanya Charitamrita is such a deep philosophy, really. This is the highest, it's the highest. Same time, it's so poetic. The words are, how can we do that? How can it is only, you know. And same time, of course, in our philosophy, science is there, such a deep science. Philosophical. Chaitanya Charitamrita. In 2 lines, deep philosophy, poetry, and science. Scientific. Science. There, anyway. Even in Brahma Samhita also. So, gradually, the spiritual element left. But in Vedic knowledge, culture, religion, the spirituality is all pervading within the government system, social system, medical system. Many times I mentioned, I used to go to Udupi for treatment. At one time I went a lot. So it was a college and a hospital. So I asked and then who will come and treat you? All the trainees, they'll come. So then I used to keep books, try to distribute small books. Then once I asked one of them that, so what is source of energy in the body? He said the heart, Ayurveda. So heart is beating. How does heart produce how does heart transfer energy around the body? Through the blood. What is making the heart beat? He said soul. Oh, you accept soul? He said yes. Soul is making the heart beat whole life. When it leaves, heart won't beat. So medical, everywhere it's pervading. And so, therefore, in people who are very materialistic, not only they'll not follow Veda, they'll oppose it, they'll target it so much. In the current stage, in this world, politics and so many things, but India is targeted heavily always by people, especially politics and this, and because it's a threat to materialists. It's a threat to people who want to enjoy this world and forget God. Vedic culture is so strong, so it's always a target. So many forces are there, little bit into politics. Lots of forces now are trying to break India from east, west. You see agitation, riots and that in the government, in the newspaper, they're planting articles. In the film industry, they make films to make us hate Brahmanas, Vedic culture, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, so many things. The reason is because it's so theistic. So an example is given here, that Sankhya philosophy actually is a physical study of nature, body, environment, but it culminates in spirituality. Everything will culminate in spirituality. So this knowledge had become lost. It's just like now in the West, it's gone. So Lord Kapila had come. It says here, for in due course of time the knowledge was lost. He came to establish, where is it written? Pravacha Suraye Sankhyam. He says, Pravacha said, Asuraya Sankhyam Tattva Grama Vinirnayam, exposition. He came to give an exposition on Sankhya, because knowledge of Sankhya had been lost. Proper study. So now in the present day, people are studying this material world, studying, but somehow it's not coming to the soul, isn't it? Biology. One famous scientist said that he studied the material body in detail, looking for the signs of life. He studied with the lowest cell level, smaller than the cell, then higher came. Mind, he said, somehow the life symptoms slipped through my fingers. I could not. He studied the whole, where did they go? he couldn't get it. So, but yeah, Western system, it's not there. But one day, there was a time Western was also Vedic, but we are saying Western now means materialistic, which is in India also. Materialistic study, We studied biology, we studied physics, but it didn't culminate in soul, isn't it? It's unsatisfying, very disturbing. So, people who are studying without God, it's so disturbing and frustrating that they keep studying whole life, looking, searching. Some search there, some search in Himalayas. Some say, okay, I'll go to college, let me search. Disturbance, agitation, that I don't know who I am, what is this world? Do PhD, research into matter, particles, atoms. Where is God? Where is the soul? Study the body, study in biology. They didn't get it. Actually, that's puffed up now. That's Aroha Pantha. We have to surrender to God, accept Shabda Praman. Open the Shastra. They have their Shastra. Of course, Veda is higher. But the concept is there. Surrender to God, let Him give the knowledge. But He won't until we surrender. This Sankhya is theistic. We'll understand and we'll come to God. Hare Krishna. Any question?
What is the difference between Sankhya and speculative study?
Now here, if you say Sankhya in the Vedas, actual etymological meaning, it said here, Sankhya means and getting knowledge through analytical study of matter. If you really study matter, you'll understand how matter is functioning, where it came from, so you'll end up studying about soul. Speculation, and for that you have to study in Shastra, it's there. Kapila Muni gives it. He explains, for example, that in the beginning there was that from Brahman. Okay, let's start. Vishnu glances at matter, then the Pradhan, then Mahatattva is generated. Mahatattva means the 24 elements are isolated from the one material element, Pradhan. So Durga Devi produces Mahatattva, which is, I think, called Avyakta. So when Shankaracharya says Narayana Para Avyakta, it means his form is beyond those 24 elements. It's soul, spirit. So you say the difference between Sankhya and speculation. So in Sankhya, they say that it starts like that. Vishnu glances at the Pradhan, Durga. She produces the ingredients, which are the 24 elements isolated, out of which, that's also, I'm shortening, it goes on. Then out of those, we get our form, okay? So, and how the forms are interacting, and then that's the limit of my knowledge in Sankhya. But it culminates in soul. But the point is, it's based on Shastra, and they say it starts with Vishnu glances, produces matter and all that. But speculative is speculation. People are just, what is self? Who am I? I am, therefore I live. You say so many things. This is a dream. Nothing is reality. They'll just put their own opinions. Nothing based on Shastra. Religion is based on Shastra. You want to, Madhu, something?
No.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki. We set up for Prabhu to give class, but he